Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome to your detailed forecast update for December 2nd, 2024. I've got a lot to get through today, including showers and storms expected to pepper the North Queensland weather scene. We're also going to be talking about some heavy rainfall. That is a chance across parts of central Queensland. We'll take a look at the southeastern Queensland weather scene as well. Plenty of flooding happening down there now as well. Got a bit of rain on the cards for New South Wales and Victoria as well. Thunderstorms across South Australia and the Northern Territory. And to top it off, a tropical low offshore from Western Australia. So we're really going to go all around Australia today. So buckle up and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We've got a lot to get through today. The support lately has been much appreciated. But let's get stuck straight into things this morning. Up in the north of Queensland, kind of do a bit of a loop around Australia. So the north of Queensland kind of is the most interesting weather stuff that we have coming through over the next couple of days. And to start off your working week up in the north of Queensland, we do have quite a few thunderstorms. We still have a couple of showers and storms peppering the radar scene from last night. You can see a few storms inland towards Croydon and some showers just north of Cairns streaming into the shore right now. And some of them are heavy at times. Now the rainfall here has begun to ease off. There were some pretty good falls, especially across the Atherton tablelands over the past 24 hours. In fact, I believe there were places outside of Mareeba that picked up over 50 millimetres. Fantastic stuff indeed. And just considering that there is a little bit more rainfall on the way, you can see as this onshore flow picks up throughout the course of today. By this afternoon at around 1 or 2 p.m, we're going to see a line of thunderstorms develop, most likely north of the Daintree rainforest. That's where the bulk of them are going to be. So areas out like Mount Carbine in the southern side of where these thunderstorms are going to blow up, and then out towards Laura and Cooktown can expect some good thunderstorms tonight. But there still will be a couple of thunderstorms to go around out towards Chilago, Atherton and Rainfall as well, as extending as far inland as about Georgetown and Forsyth. So a couple of good storms out there certainly could get a few people excited, and by around 4 p.m. they're expected to be at their peak. Now we are expecting the chance of a few severe thunderstorms, mostly for the heavy rainfall. There could also be a couple of damaging wind gusts in the wake of these thunderstorms as well, and a few small hailstones also possible, but again the hailstones definitely nothing to write home about. The rainfall last night though was intense. There was a lot of it to go around when it did fall. It thankfully did miss the majority of kind of very flood-prone areas, which was a very good thing indeed, but the rainfall last night was intense. I mean, they were clocking rainfall rates of 250 millimetres an hour, so thank goodness that didn't sustain itself for any significant period of time, but still gives you an idea of how intense the rainfall can be up here. And just from these thunderstorms, we are expecting, again, a very intense round of rainfall. I mean, take a look at this. Plenty of large thunder cells expected outside of Woodgilla and Port Douglas, and then a couple of good thunder cells also expected around Atherton and Ravenshoe, and some great storms also expected on the western half of the Cape York Peninsula outside of Corumba and Croydon. A couple of good storms as well extending down towards Georgetown and Forsyth, as mentioned just a few moments ago. But yeah, these thunderstorms should ease off by this afternoon and evening, or throughout this afternoon then into this evening. Still though, those showers are going to continue for the northern Queensland coastline, especially for areas between Cairns down towards Ingham and Cardwell. Some great falls are expected until the 9 a.m. into tomorrow morning, so I wouldn't be surprised if once again we're waking up to accumulations tomorrow morning, 50 or 60 millimetres around Innisfail or Tully. That's certainly going to get a couple of the dams topped up and some of the rivers beginning to flow. Great falls expected tomorrow, especially into the western part of the Cape York Peninsula up in towards Arakan and Weipa. Some great rainfall expected there from thunderstorms. Just a lot of thunderstorm stuff expected tomorrow afternoon. Unfortunately though, it's going to be inland from the Atherton tablelands, so Atherton and Ravenshoe and Mareeba could see a couple of good drops of rainfall tomorrow afternoon, but again the chances there are much lower than what they have been this weekend and also for today. Still though, the chance of storms is going to be there. Showers continuing for North Queensland throughout Wednesday and Thursday. You can see in fact throughout Wednesday there could actually be some decent falls in the early afternoon around Cairns, and especially down on the Cassowary coast as well outside of Innisfail and Tully, and some good falls also expected from storms further inland before those storms pretty much ease off and clear out by Thursday afternoon. They're still going to be lingering here and there throughout Thursday and Friday. That rainfall really does pipe up for far northern Queensland throughout Friday as well, and then by this weekend the thunderstorms pretty much cleared away. So it's going to be a bit of a turbulent week across the north of Queensland. Plenty of rainfall also expected as well, and I would just like to take you guys through that right now. Until Saturday morning we're expecting up to 100 millimetres around the Cassowary coast, and between 70 and 100 millimetres or so between Cairns, Innisfail and Tully. So some good falls expected there, and then inland out towards Ravenshoe and Atherton from the thunderstorms expected tonight, and also kind of very weakly into tomorrow afternoon there will be a couple of showers, but again nothing to write home about. We're expecting a further 40 or 50 millimetres in this area, and like I said, the majority of this rainfall coming through tonight, with a few more drops coming through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and then further out towards Chilago, and then further out towards the western part of the Cape York Peninsula. Accumulations will pipe up again from plenty of thunderstorms expected this week, and they could amount up towards 120, maybe even 150 millimetres. So some great drops of rainfall expected out there, reciprocated amongst the other forecast models as well. So you can see looking pretty good, just all things considered, across the north of Queensland, which is fantastic to see. Much needed rainfall for them for this time of the year as well. In terms of the long range forecast, forecast extending right out the 14-day period here. You can see the rainfall accumulations do steadily continue to pile on, well in excess of 150 millimetres, getting close to 200 millimetres for the Daintree rainforest over the next 14 days. So the rainfall up in the far north of Queensland, need I say more for this time of the year, beginning to pile on in its regular fashion. And that's just like you can see here as I play this through really quickly, just from showers continuing to fall across the far north of Queensland. They do get heavier at times here and there. In fact, you can see some proper rainfall at times is possible towards the end of the forecast period into the start of not next week, but the week after next. And that is kind of reciprocated with a weak signal of a tropical low developing in the Coral Sea. But again, do not panic by me saying this. It's a very weak signal, and it's also 14 days out into the future. So the forecast models are notoriously unreliable with it, and I can prove that by showing you the GFS forecast, which has not much on its forecast in terms of tropical activity, in the Access G3, which has nothing in the 10-day forecast period. So again, literally nothing to be panicking about right now. Yes, there will be cyclone activity soon in the Coral Sea, but it isn't going to be piping up any time in the next week or so. So again, nothing to worry about at this time. That basically does it for North Queensland. It's a lot of forecast for a small part of Queensland. Let's head down into the central parts and the southeast as well. We'll see if we can kill two birds with one stone with that. You can see a couple of storms and showers still peppering around the Mackay and Bowen, Eyre, Townsville sort of area throughout the course of today. A couple of storms expected further inland. In fact, a lot of them could be severe later on this afternoon and evening, with heavy rainfall turning to severe thunderstorms at times around the Winton, Yarra and down towards Addervale, or right down to the New South Wales and Queensland border, to be honest, down through Wannaring and down to about White Cliffs in New South Wales. We've got a line of thunderstorms expected to develop there later on tonight, some of which could be severe. And then into central Queensland as well, thunderstorms continuing through Tuesday around the Hughenden, Muttaburra and Longreach area. A couple of thunderstorms also continuing through Wednesday. Showers around the Mackay area for Wednesday night into Thursday, and a couple of storms expected into the central Queensland coastline through Thursday afternoon as well. But it's looking pretty dry, all things considered, right throughout the forecast period across the central Queensland area. Like we did talk about yesterday, we do have the chance of some rainfall piping up from a bit of a trough that's expected to develop across interior parts of Queensland. This could actually tend out to be a tropical low later on in the forecast period, so this is certainly something that's worth keeping an eye on. But we might have a bit of an energy wave that develops or brings a bunch of rainfall, or a low pressure system across New South Wales and Victoria, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. It brings a bunch of rainfall to the central Queensland area over the next kind of 14 days or so, probably around Friday or Saturday the 13th or 14th of December respectively. And then you can see here it kind of begins to spin up into a bit of tropical stuff here. It's a very weird forecast and it's difficult to make sense of, and I could go into detail with this forecast here and spend 5 minutes really explaining the gist of this thing here, but this is just more of a heads up that there is some rainfall on the cards, as we talked about yesterday. Not an awful lot, but there is certainly some rainfall that is on the cards, and also that tropical low being on the cards as well. We will take a look at this in great detail in a future forecast update, but that time is not today, just considering the uncertainty of this weather event. And just taking a look at 14-day rainfall accumulations as a whole for Queensland outside of the far north, you can see inland from thunderstorms expected over the next few days, well in excess of 100 millimetres around Hughenden and Longreach and down towards Charleville and Windora as well. Accumulations widespread expected to be above 30 millimetres and right up towards that 60 or 70 millimetre mark through this area as well, with, like I said, a couple of places picking up towards 100 millimetres, and some decent falls around the Sunshine Coast as well, up towards 60 or 70 millimetres there. Again, the majority of that falling towards the end of the forecast period. Southeastern Queensland, though, being pretty neglected with the rainfall. In fact, they don't really have an awful lot on the cards over the next 10 days. You can see a few storms expected into the south central area outside of Toowoomba on both Wednesday and Thursday this week, and a couple of storms might be possible on Sunday or Monday, the 8th or 9th of December. But I mean, after that, we're really waiting a long time until those next thunderstorms do come through. So it certainly is something worth keeping an eye on across the southeast, but this time it is looking pretty quiet over there. And look at that, we're out of Queensland within 10 minutes. So now let's take a look at New South Wales and Victoria. I've still got a lot to get through with this area here. You can see plenty of rainfall expected on the forecast as well. And I was quite surprised at how much rainfall the forecast was actually suggesting that these places are going to receive over the next 14 days. I mean, accumulations well in excess of 200 millimetres across some of these more mountainous areas. This is certainly something that I'm going to take with a very heavy pinch of salt, but let's see if it does make sense on the forecast models. Again, showers and thunderstorms across interior parts of South Australia throughout the course of today. They're going to extend into New South Wales tomorrow afternoon, and a couple of severe storms possible into the far northeast of the state and around the Albury and Shepparton sort of area, digging into Victoria as well tomorrow afternoon into Wednesday afternoon. Severe thunderstorms look possible on Friday as well into the western half of the state as a bit of a cold front sweeps up from the south, if you like, and that one they could bring a very good environment for convective activity to occur, and then that cool change sweeping through on Saturday as well. Saturday afternoon and evening, it's going to be a warm one out towards Mildura, up towards 35 degrees there, but Melbourne escaping the worst of the warm weather. It is going to be a little bit warm, however, on Friday for Melbourne, and a couple of storms, possibly severe ones, also possible there. We'll dig into those in a later forecast update. And then into next week, from about Thursday onwards, we see a bit of a low pressure system develop here into the interior parts of South Australia. Now, all that this means is that those temperatures are going to be driven through the roof of South Australia, but showers and storms expected to develop around it. You can see a real good line of rainfall expected to develop on the eastern side of this low pressure system, with a lot of moisture being sucked in from the Tasman Sea. And this low pressure system here slowly wraps itself up, bringing a lot of rainfall through Friday and Saturday the 13th and 14th of December respectively for the southeastern corner of New South Wales and into the eastern half of Victoria here. Plenty of rainfall looks to be expected there on the forecast models before that low pressure system sweeps down into the south. Very intense indeed as it brushes away from Tasmania, bringing a lot of cool air in from the Southern Ocean, rather, not from South Australia, and then sweeping off across towards New Zealand by the looks of things, dragging in all of that moisture as well from parts of Queensland. So it's going to be a widespread weather event. Very plausible as well on the forecast models. I mean, that this makes perfect sense. Even for this time of the year, this is a completely valid forecast and something that we would expect for this time of the year. So we will keep a very close eye on it. It looks like some very healthy summer rain is going to be coming in for parts of New South Wales, Victoria, and also parts of Tasmania as well, and of course in towards Queensland. So we will keep a close eye on this weather event here. Things can change, a lot can happen over the forecast period in the next couple of days, but we will, like I said, keep a close eye on things. And we will just touch on a few things tropical now across the Northern Territory and Western Australia. You might be able to notice this here. That's what I want to be talking about, but we'll get to that in just a few moments. We do have plenty of tropical stuff to keep ourselves entertained across the Northern Territory and parts of WA, and you can see here showers and thunderstorms being very persistent over the coming couple of days. Plenty of energy being burst off Indonesia as well. Plenty of convective stuff expected off Indonesia over the coming couple of days, and that's going to equate to lots of rainfall across the Kimberley region of WA and plenty of rainfall as well for the Northern Territory. In fact, just over the course of this week, accumulations should amass to higher than 100 millimetres until Saturday across parts of the Northern Territory. In fact, yeah, up towards 80 or 90 millimetres outside of Darwin. Some great falls also expected out towards Jabiru and Katherine. And these river catchments, they're already struggling with the rainfall that they've had, and they've got more on the cards now. This is true wet season stuff, and I reckon those roads, if they haven't been turned to slush already, they're going to be slush by the end of this week. So again, make sure you're taking extra care if you are driving on the roads, if you're commuting or camping up in the Northern Territory as well. Stay high and dry. Make sure you're not camping in a flood-prone area, because one thunderstorm that drops 100 millimetres in 30 minutes, completely possible up in the Northern Territory and parts of Western Australia, can change the course of those rivers, and they can make them flood. Let me tell you, some very heavy falls do look possible over the coming couple of days. And then we see that tropical low begin to spin up by sort of the early parts of next week, Monday and Tuesday. It really doesn't get its act together until about Friday, when it brings itself over Western Australia. And I mean, it does try and spin up into a tropical cyclone. In all fairness, it does have gale force winds in this forecast picture here, dragging in a line of winds up towards 70 or 80 kilometres an hour, extending into the Pilbara region and the Kimberley region. So it will have a little bit of a punch, but the majority of the punch is going to come from the rainfall that this system is going to carry. I mean, you can see this here, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, this system barely moves an inch, and that's just going to be bringing torrential tropical rainfall across northern parts of WA, especially around the Fitzroy Crossing, Halls Creek area, extending inland towards Wave Hill and Tennant Creek into the interior parts of the Northern Territory. The rainfall, in fact, extending all the way across the Gulf of Carpentaria. So this is certainly something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. This will equate to a flooding emergency in the northern parts of Western Australia. There's just no two ways about it. I mean, if you take a look at the rainfall accumulations that the forecast models are suggesting, and I'm not even going to show you the 14-day period either, but if you take a look at just the, I mean, if we can get this to work here, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get it to work, but if we can get the rainfall accumulations here to show over the coming couple of days, or not the coming couple of days, but just throughout the course of next week and next weekend, just over, let's do a 5-day period here, struggling to figure out or remember when this tropical low is going to pipe up. But if you take a look at this, I mean, this is just 3 days of rainfall here, or basically a weekend of rainfall. You're talking about accumulations well in excess of 200 millimetres, and for some of these areas down towards Kiwakara and Balgo, that's a year's supply of rainfall, or that's a couple of years if you're talking about a few dry years. And if you're talking about rainfall accumulations over more of a 5-day forecast period here, much more is expected to fall. So certainly some very heavy stuff is expected here, and like I said, that will equate to a flooding emergency if it does kind of come into fruition across the northern parts of Western Australia. Certainly something that I want a lot of people to keep a very close eye on. It's something that's very much interesting to me now as well. In terms of the future prediction for this tropical low, it's very hard to say. I mean, it really doesn't make its mind up on whether it wants to go deeper out into Western Australia or just linger along the coast or even further inland. If it does Muslinga inland, we're going to have a big rainfall problem because of the brown ocean effect. I mean, whatever rainfall it does drop, it's kind of a feedback loop, if you like. The storm is able to evaporate and create plenty of extra thunderstorms through the rainfall that's already caused by creating kind of an inland sea, and that's kind of a unique feature to Western Australia. You can get it over in the Americas, but Western Australia has the best examples of it pretty much anywhere in the world, and that brown ocean effect, if you'd like, put some little bit of reading or a little bit of research into it. It's a very interesting phenomenon indeed, and certainly not something that you'd hear about every day, but it is a classic case of a system that's able to build on itself across Western Australia, invest in itself, if you like, by dropping rainfall and creating an inland sea, and then being able to build more rainfall and more thunderstorms off it. Again, a feature unique to Western Australia. Now, the reason why it's not moving on this forecast here is probably due to uncertainty. There's certainly steering currents in the atmosphere that will direct this system one way or another at this time of the year, but it's not moving on this forecast because of the uncertainty. The Eastern River forecast, which is one that I'm using, just cannot make its mind up on where this system is going to go. So let's take a look at the GFS forecast model here. Again, it is calling for some kind of tropical spin-up. In fact, it's calling for something further out into the Indian Ocean here, developing off the Cocos-Keeling Islands earlier on the forecast period. But I would take the GFS forecast with a very heavy pinch of salt, considering it's spinning up two individual tropical lows here that kind of dance around each other and then absorb each other in the Fujiwara effect later on the forecast period, which is a rare phenomenon and not something common or unique to tropical lows. So it is certainly something that's quite interesting indeed. We will have to wait and see what actually happens with this here. But in terms of a cyclone in the lead up to Christmas offshore from Western Australia, I'm giving it a 50-50 chance at this time. Certainly possible, but just considering the uncertainty that the forecast models are carrying right now, I would not be betting any amount of money on it either, which is good news, of course. We don't really want to see a tropical cyclone this time of the year, let alone any time of the year across northern parts of WA or even into the Coral Sea of Queensland. So we will take a closer look at these systems in tomorrow's forecast update as well. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing. There's a special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and again, I could not run the show without them, and their support is much appreciated. Let me know how much rainfall you've received, especially into the north of Queensland and into the southeast as well. I believe the hinterlands also received some great rainfall as well. They've got some flooding problems down there, so again, let me know how much rainfall you've received and the weather you're currently enduring right now. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, but that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.